Hey, this is Kirsten Sires, CEO and founder of LRT Sports. Today we are here with Lauren and Blake, and they're going to give us some information about lacrosse. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the questions.
I can go. I'm Lauren. I go to Northwestern. I play lacrosse there. I'm going to be a senior this year, so graduating in 2021, and I'm majoring in journalism.
All right, I'm Blake Rondeau. I go to Boston University. I play lacrosse there as well, and I'm going to graduate in 2022. I'm a communications major, and we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. So first question is, when you guys were getting recruited and going through your recruiting process, what are some things that you kind of wish you knew that were specific to lacrosse? We'll start with Lauren, then go to Blake.
So when I was getting recruited, it was before the September 1st of your junior year rule was made. So I was really, really young. I started going to camps and talking with coaches the summer after my freshman year. So quite honestly, I just wish I kind of had more awareness of everything that was out there and kind of just like a broader understanding of the lacrosse landscape in college, just because I basically went with, what I knew, which was the few camps that I had the opportunity to attend in that first summer. And everything was happening so early and so quickly that I didn't have much time to kind of like weigh my options probably as much as I wish I had. Like, not that I would have made a different decision, but I think that would have been a healthy process for me to go through. Obviously, with the rule now, kids have a lot more time to kind of process that decision, which I think is a good thing. But I think, yeah, just more awareness of everything that was out there would have been good for me.
Yeah, I agree. Like when I was getting recruited, I was going into my sophomore year of high school, and that's pretty young to make a decision on college. And so I think if I were to do it again, I would probably wait a little bit longer so that I really understood what it would be about. Because when you're 16, you don't really know what you're going to want at 18 truly. But they changed the rules now, so I feel like that's a little bit better. And another thing I wish I would know before is that not to spend money on most of showcases and stuff, but rather just go to prospect days for colleges I'm interested in, because showcases are cool and all, but I feel like a lot of them are money grabs. So if you just go directly to the school, I feel like you have a better chance of getting seen by those coaches, and you play against other players that want to go there. I feel like that's a better way to get recruited, by going to the prospect days than to showcases overall.
While we're on the topic of showcases, do you want to talk about your experiences with showcases, and if there are any showcases that are legit or invite only, or anything that is definitely important and will get you exposure? Do you want to talk about which ones those might be?
Yeah, so I would definitely agree that if you're going to invest your money in something, pick your top few schools and go to the camps, because the coaches are a lot more likely to see you in that setting than they are to showcase with a million fields and a million games going on. But in terms of the one showcase where I was able to get seen by coaches was President's Cup, which is in Florida in November. That one's a really good one. And then I know an invite-only camp that a lot of the girls that are on my team got recruited from is called North Star Camp. So I know that that's another good one. And then the Under Armour Showcase in the summer in Maryland is also obviously a huge one. And then I know there's a ton of stuff on the East Coast, but being from the West Coast, I honestly don't know a lot of the bigger stuff that goes on. But yeah, in general, I would say if you're able to kind of narrow down your choices and invest your money in camps, if you have to kind of pick one or the other, I would definitely recommend doing that.
Awesome. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, aside from prospect camps for specific schools, I think the showcases that really helped me were Under Armour tryouts are amazing, because every coach goes there, especially if you live in a hotbed area. I'm from the Philadelphia area. There's tons of good players here. So we have a lot of coaches come to that. And one other one that I actually got looks from was the FLG showcase in Long Island at LIU Post. And that was a good showcase. The other ones they're cool and all, but you really got to look at where the coaches are going to go. And that's where emailing comes in. you got to ask like what camps are you going to go to, and if the schools are interested, you can go to those showcases.
Awesome. And then for the prospect camps, like the school specific ones, you know, do you want to talk about just like what somebody should do to prepare for that mentally, physically, and then also at the same time what they should be doing as far as just like maybe emailing the coach ahead of time if they want to get an extra step in front of the coach type of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I would 100% email the coaches ahead of time, let them know you're coming, express your interest in the school, so then they can kind of put a name to the face when you, or a face to the name when you come to the camp. And then, yeah, in terms of like the mental and physical preparation, I think just staying on top of things over the summer. Like I think, especially with lacrosse being a spring sport, when your spring season ends, it's easy to kind of want to take a little bit of a break and stuff, but you kind of have to view summer as part of the season in high school because that's such a crucial recruiting period. So, and I think just like having them in the confidence and like who you are as a player and a person when you go to one of those camps, because there's so many prospects, there's so many people that they're looking at, but it's going to be the people that stand out to them, you know, in terms of the swagger that they have on the field, as well as like their actual technical and tactical skills, because there's just so many different girls. You kind of have to separate yourself in that way too. So I would just say be really, really confident in yourself. And if the more you prepare, the more confident you are, then do everything that you can to prepare before that.
Yeah, like I have a little brother that's only like a year younger than me, so we can practice with each other a lot. And you definitely need to go in with the attitude that like you're on your own, like you need to get this, like forget these other kids, like you're gonna go hard. Like I don't care if I'm like hurting other people or whatever. This isn't rec league. Like I'm here to try and like win a spot. But you also have to be cool. Like they notice if you're like not a cool guy, or like if you're a jerk or something. Like if you're a good teammate to your teammates, but you're just like brutal to the other team and you're like really going as hard as you can, like that's what they want to see, because you have a short opportunity. Like you really have to make the most of it and just like try and dominate the best you can. So that's how you gotta approach that stuff. It's like either him or me, and that's how you gotta approach the camps, because you're fighting for like very few spots and there's tons of kids.
Yeah, definitely. And then as far as like emailing a coach, what are some things that are lacrosse specific that you should be including? We all know GPA, SAT, the more general things, but what are some things that they should be including in their email that are specific to lacrosse?
Honestly, just like including your highlight tape, obviously. I think, I mean, this isn't really lacrosse specific necessarily, but just like, I think like, especially with spring sports, because like they would have just occurred saying like, oh, you guys had a great season or whatever. Like I watched this game and I'm really excited to like meet this player, or like whatever it might be. Especially since the season just happened, I think like referencing that specifically is really good. And then also just telling them whatever other camps or showcases you might be going to that summer, so that they know ahead of time. But that's all I can really think of.
Yeah, same. It's just like GPA, highlight tape, coaches you've played for, and coaches like your club coach, your high school coach, what high school you go to. Just pretty generic stuff. They don't want to be reading like whole books for emails, so just give them right off.
Quick question: should they include like what position they play or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Or do they not need to? Okay. And then go ahead. What?
Like, so if you're an attackman, you can put like A/M, like you can be like attack / midfield, because like in college, chances are you might get moved around a lot. Like, so I'd put as many positions that you can possibly play in there to make yourself the most versatile athlete that you can be.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that to you guys too, especially with lacrosse, because a lot of sports are so different, but I feel like with lacrosse and soccer especially, the position you play in high school, you might not end up playing in college. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, and what type of player you need to be as far as just being coachable and adaptable? And I mean, outside of goalie, obviously, because we all know goalies have a very specific job, but if you're playing any other position on the field, did you guys personally switch positions? Did you stay in your position? And do you see a difference in men's and women's with, going from high school playing a certain position to then college, a bunch of different ones, or how does that kind of work with lacrosse?
Yeah, so I did switch positions. I was a midfielder in high school and I play attack now. I think that there's definitely, like you said, in lacrosse, there's a lot of changing of positions when you get to the college level. I think a lot of people play high school in midfield. At least that's what I've seen be the case, is just like usually the players that can kind of play all around in high school are going to be the midfielders. And if you're getting recruited, generally you're kind of able to play all around unless you have specialized from a younger age. So I think the best thing you can do is just really try to hone your skills on both ends of the field so that, you know, you can fit in wherever a spot's open, quite honestly, because obviously nothing's guaranteed when you're coming in, but if you kind of have the skill set on both sides of the ball, it's going to be much easier for them to find a place for you. Something in women's lacrosse in general is just like a lack of specialized defenders. So I think like if you're in a position where you're really trying to get recruited and maybe you've been struggling or you're even possibly newer to lacrosse, but you're athletic and you're picking up the game, if you can get really good at defense, you're going to put yourself in a really good spot to have a chance to get recruited, just because there are really few girls who in high school are able to say like, I'm a defender, straight up raw defender. So that would be something that I think could definitely make you stand out on the girls' side.
Yeah, like in high school, I got recruited by BU to play close defense, and then I got to BU, and they're like, "You're playing long stick midi." And then for a time there, because I was like the freshman LSM, and we had 2 juniors and a senior ahead of me, I played like defensive midfield with a short stick for a while. So you got to really be like willing to do whatever you can to play, because honestly, that's what you're gonna want to do, because you don't want to be practicing every day and just like stand on the sidelines. So you'll play whatever gets you in the field.
Awesome. And then for highlight tape, you know, usually we recommend 3 to 5 minutes, probably more on the 3-minute side. Best plays first. Should you be showing if you play more than one position for lacrosse, and also what types of stick skills should you be showing? Is it important for high school athletes to play with both hands, or anything else that you guys can kind of talk about that would separate themselves on highlight tape for lacrosse for a coach? And I'm sure men's and women's might be different. I'm not sure. They might be the same. So you guys talk to your specific one.
Yeah, definitely like important how you brought up being able to play with both hands. That's huge in lacrosse. So definitely showing that is important on the attacking end. I think something that's kind of unique to lacrosse that you wouldn't necessarily show in other sports highlight tapes is your ability to win 50-50 balls. So if you have really good highlights of you picking up ground balls, winning draws, that's huge. So outside of like scoring goals and getting assists, I think, you know, like I just said, the 50-50 balls, the draws, causing turnovers, that's another big one. So I think, yeah, just really your ability to kind of be a ball, like get the ball and do something with it. I think your play in the middle of the field, though, is something that's unique to lacrosse that you should really try and show off in your highlight tape.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like defense is definitely a lot of ground balls and maybe like some transition if you're good at that, like especially if you're an LSM, if you can like run the field a little bit, that's good to put in there for sure. If you have both hands, it's fine, but most coaches don't care as long as you're super solid with one hand on defense. But attackman, yeah, definitely should try and have both hands and like dodges and pretty much just everything you can include in the smallest amount of time to showcase the widest like variety of your game. Try and do that and just put like the best of each one. And then if the coaches like you see, they'll just hit up your club coach or your head coach in high school, and like you can talk further, and then they'll want to see you play in person. So just try and get as much diversity in there as you can, but make them all like your best plays. But if that's not your thing, then maybe just stick to like your specialties and do that. Like if you're an outside shooter, like you don't want to be limited to just like one kind of archetype, you know, you want to be as open to as many as you can. So try and show that in your highlight tape.
Awesome. And then with lacrosse, you know, I know that there's a lot of club teams out there and people have a tendency to play clubs. So do you want to talk about how important it is to play club, if it is important in your guys' opinion, versus high school, and kind of talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I kind of had an interesting experience with club, or a lack thereof, because I'm from Oregon, so we don't have a lot of club teams here. So I actually would drive up to Seattle to play for a team called the Seattle Stars, and that was kind of how I was able to go to some showcases and actually get seen. So, but obviously if you live like where Blake does or really anywhere on the East Coast, it's a lot different. Um, and I think it obviously is important getting that extra competition and stuff, but just, coming from my perspective, for anyone that's not from an area where they might have access to a lot of club teams, you should also know that that's not a time to panic. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, like there are so many camps that you can go to just individually and still have the opportunity to get seen. I think if you're able to compete at a high level on a club team, that's amazing. And you should definitely take advantage of that opportunity. But you should also use other resources if you're not from a hotbed, if you're from an area that doesn't have as many teams. You can still find a lot of opportunities to get seen.
Yeah, I think club is definitely important for lacrosse. Like if you don't go to like an elite high school for lacrosse, then you're probably not going to get seen playing for high school. So you definitely need to be on like an elite club team, especially if you live on the East Coast, and that'll just get you way more exposure. So definitely try out for like the best club team in your area. I think that's a big deal.
Awesome. Yeah, and my next question was going to be about exposure in a unrecruited area, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that, Lauren. Anything to add onto that, Blake? Do you know any? No.
I mean, I have a couple buddies of mine in school from the West Coast, and they all played for like West Coast Stars, so they have to travel on planes to like a lot of their tournaments. They wouldn't have gotten recruited, I don't think, without club. Like they just go to public schools in the West Coast. Yeah, they need club.
Yep. And then I think hold on, let me see. Oh, for lacrosse, we touched on this before. Verbally committing, recruiting typically was earlier. Obviously, they pushed the dates back, but I've even heard circumstances now where girls are really nervous because they're like, I'm a junior, everybody's verbally committing. What do I do? I'm freaking out. What's happening? So what do you recommend to those people that are getting nervous because maybe their teammates are verbally committing earlier or whatever it may be?
Yeah. I think it's definitely a good thing that they changed the rule because things were starting to happen way too early. So I'm really glad that the recruits now have a lot more time to process that decision and just like grow as high school players. But I would just say don't panic. There's so many different programs and opportunities out there. Another thing with lacrosse is the rosters are pretty big, and I've seen my coaches take kids very late in the process, like deep into their senior year. So I think the biggest thing, especially now that it's later, is showing your improvement and really growing a lot as a player each year. Because if they're going to be recruiting you later in your high school career, they want to see that you've grown a lot as a player. And that's obviously a lot closer to the time that you're actually going to be in college competing. So they want to see that you're getting ready for that and you're on trend to be able to compete at that level. But if you're a little bit later in the process still, don't panic. Continue to reach out and communicate with coaches. If they're, most coaches are pretty open-minded, especially if you're good. So I think just keeping that in mind and keeping the communication open. And obviously you want to make the decision that's right for you. So definitely keep an open mind with that and don't get too stressed.
Yeah, don't worry about what your teammates are doing. Just keep working on yourself. Put yourself in the best position you can to get recruited, and if it's meant to be, it should work out. So that's it.
Cool. So I have a couple last questions. This next question I think might just be for Blake. So Lauren, I'll let Blake go first, and if you have anything to add, feel free to do so. But especially being from the East Coast, there's a lot of kids that might go prep school or PG a year with lacrosse specifically. So do you want to talk about that? If you see, is it beneficial to do so? I know not everybody has the means to do so. I know they also do give scholarships to PGs a lot of times. So I know Salisbury in Connecticut is a really good school, especially for lacrosse, and a lot of kids get funneled through there. So do you want to talk about just the prep school route a little bit with lacrosse specifically in the East Coast?
Oh yeah, like I went to a Catholic prep school here in Philadelphia called LaSalle, and I left my public school because their team was like way better at LaSalle, so I wanted to go play there. But I personally would never want a PG because I'm trying to get out of high school, go to college like ASAP, you know. But I have some teammates in college that have PG'd, but they're like way older than me in my grade, and I don't know. There's nothing against that, but I personally wouldn't want to spend an extra year of my life just playing high school lacrosse so that I can play in college. Like maybe if my college offered me and they were like, you have to PG, and I know like Cornell and like some other schools like make you take an extra year in high school, but I would personally never want to do that because, you know, I've got like life going on after lacrosse and I don't want to just be like 25 graduating college because I waited to try and get recruited. Like if you can't get recruited in your grade, then maybe you should try and PG, but it's really a personal decision. And if you want to go to a prep school, like a lot of them are pretty expensive. It's a big time commitment. All your buddies in your grade are going to be in college. It's like, it's personal. It's up to you. But me personally, I would never PG.
I do have a question to go off of that though. Since we are dealing with COVID and people lost a spring season and a summer season, and we might not, they're talking about high schools not even going back this fall and recruiting is all up in the air. Do you think that could be a good solution to somebody that might be a senior right now that's recruiting process is just totally up in the air?
Yeah, so I don't know what high schools are doing. Like, I don't know if they're taking online classes or anything, but if you want to take some time maybe, or yeah, if you want to like take an extra year to try and go to, if you really want to do that, then like all the power to you. You can do that, but it's personal. Coaches are still going to try and find a way to recruit because they get that most kids don't want a PG. So I know there's tournaments going on. Like I know there's a tournament going on in Delaware in like a couple of days. I know tournaments are still happening. So just try and get out to your tournaments, try and get out to club teams, keep making tapes, keep working. If you want a PG, that's up to you. If not, it's fine.
Yep, totally agree. Lauren, do you have anything to add with just teammates that you've seen or anything?
Yeah, so my sister actually is headed to Stanford for lacrosse in the fall, and she PG'd this past year because she got recruited really late. She thought she wanted to play basketball like basically all of high school, and then finally summer before senior year, she was like, "Wait, I want to play lacrosse." Obviously, very late in the game there, um, but yeah. So basically, kind of what Blake was saying, it wasn't really like she was like, "I want a PG," but the coach she was recruited by, who was originally at Dartmouth at the time, actually was like, your class is already full. If you want to play here, you have to PG. And then she ended up going to Stanford and asking Katie to come to Stanford instead. But yeah, I mean, the PG thing, I think like if, you know, obviously it's not everyone's ideal thing. You know, my sister definitely wasn't like imagining herself going from high school to a PG year, but it ended up being a really positive experience. Obviously, COVID cut it short, but I think like if you're in a position where the PG is the best option for you and you're able to go to, I mean, she's going to her dream school. So I think like if that sets you up for that opportunity, 100% do it.
Yep, totally agreed. Okay, so I'm going to ask two more questions. But with lacrosse specifically, and this does change sport to sport, just so you guys know, but what do you see as the biggest differences between the divisions with lacrosse? Maybe playing level, skill level, time commitment, whatever you guys want to talk about that you think athletes should be aware of before they commit to any of the divisions, D1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm. I think like Division One lacrosse is becoming, obviously lacrosse is a newer sport that's growing really fast. So I think like until recently it was kind of like, especially at the Division One level, like the same schools competing for championships year after year. And if you weren't kind of like going to one of those schools, you didn't necessarily have the same opportunity to potentially win championships. But I think now it's becoming a really like widespread competitive landscape. So I think that's a really good thing. And like giving so many more kids the opportunity to compete at the highest level for national championships, I think that's really awesome. So I think and then I think in terms of the time commitment, I don't know how much different it would be from other sports. Obviously Division One is going to be the biggest time commitment. And I mean, I know some girls who play Division Three, and it's definitely not as big of a time commitment, but still very much time commit. I think the biggest difference that I've noticed just from talking to girls who play Division III is like the fall off season is a lot less rigorous. I don't really view the fall as an off season, honestly, because we're practicing, still 5 days a week. We have scrimmages almost every weekend. We even travel to play some games in the fall sometimes. So I think off the top of my head, that's the biggest thing that comes to mind in terms of like, you don't really get an off season. You go to school in the fall, you train really hard for 2 months or so, and then you have winter break, and that's kind of like your break before you head back, and you're right into preseason and basically in season for the rest of the year. So yeah, that's definitely, I think, something to keep in mind with Division I is like, if you want to, study abroad, you want to be in Greek life, whatever, like Division I probably isn't for you. But Division II or Division III might give you the opportunities to like have more balanced college life if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, like my little brother plays D3 and I'm like at BU's D1. So I feel like comparing his schedule to mine, we definitely have a lot more stuff at the D1 level. But there are good there's lots of good players in the D3 level. But I think that D1 is probably the most competitive, like the biggest guys, like the most lifting and like just the most time commitment for sure. But D3, there's talent everywhere, It's just like there's different levels. The top D3 schools can hang right there with like a lot of D1 schools, I bet. So it's really what's best for you, but definitely more time at D1 than D3.
Awesome. That was super helpful. Thank you, guys. And then my last question, I say this every time, this is definitely not a timeless question, but it's something that's relevant right now. What do you think lacrosse players can be doing to get recruited during COVID? And what I mean by that is, let's just say, again, you lost your spring season, you lost your summer. Maybe you did improve. You've been lifting a ton, doing whatever you need to do. How can you show coaches on highlight tapes? How can you get creative? And what have you guys seen from your perspective of how recruiting has changed? Maybe you're doing video calls, like anything that you want to touch on that you think athletes should know about right now getting recruited for COVID with lacrosse.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like, I know my coaches at least are just keeping a super open mind in terms of recruiting. So I think I feel like this is kind of what everyone's saying right now, but being creative however you can. I think, obviously fields are starting to open up and stuff. So luckily there are a lot of lacrosse drills that you can do on your own that you are able to showcase your abilities. So I think in terms of making a highlight tape, if you feel like whatever footage you have right now doesn't do justice to, the player that you are at this point in time or how much you've improved in the past year since you didn't get to play games, I think getting out there and showing whatever you can on a tape isn't going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. But yeah, I think, again, just keeping that communication going. Coaches are just as lost as you guys are, quite honestly. They're trying their best too. So I think the more that you show that you're being persistent and you just want to keep that line of communication open with them, I think that's the best thing that you can do for yourself right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a tricky time right now, and coaches understand that it's not easy for players to get footage. So I don't know, maybe get creative and like take some videos of drills you're doing that make you look good, or like take videos of you like benching like your max or something and getting it up, or sprints or something like that. Just try and like stay in their mind, really. They understand that it's a difficult time right now, so I wouldn't be overly worried about it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much. I really appreciate it. Any last thoughts, or do you think you covered it all?
I think we're good.
Good to
Yeah.
go? All right, awesome.
All right, thank you.